Harvest Moon 3. My first experience with this game way back was playing it for less than an in-game day and immediately deleting it because it didn't even have a shipping bin, and I played as a girl, while I was expected to trust the partner to till the soil and plant for me. Which of course I wasn't okay with when I prefer farming over ranching, and tilling requires skill in the earlier games. I know the PlayStation Harvest Moon Back to Nature came out before this, but only in Japan. I'm from North America, where this was released first, and it's faster to make a review of this right after Harvest Moon 2 because they're more like each other. You're allowed to customize the color of your character's bandana. I only like the way the male character looks when he's the nostalgic blue color, so I find it pretty pointless. At least doing a little customization. Why does it affect them both at once? It's a good thing you can use a game shortcode on Foggu.com to change the way your character is colored. Because you can only customize when making a file. Then you're stuck with it. After that, the best you can do is blindly change the way your character looks, hoping you got it right before you make the code. I don't know why she still has a blue bandana. Cats can't get you all season seeds anymore. The bird always brings you seeds, but the not as much thing doesn't exactly fill me with confidence. And no one's gonna want to pick the bird option instead of a cat or dog anyways. It's really unfair. Who's gonna pick the pig? Well, seeds are just future money. Maybe the pig would be the best option. But if it sometimes brings you barely any money, then that's not gonna be worth the gamble when you could guarantee get a decent amount of money from seeds. And why would I want to look at the pig instead of a cat anyways? Even if it is weird that I have a pink cat like it's an alien. I like that it looks like the cat from Kid vs. Cat. What's even more confusing and pointless seeming is that you're asked what your blood type is. The game should explain what the point is of this. Well, it's not like it really mattered too much other than padding out how long it takes to start the game. Your starting houses indoors is unnecessarily big despite all the empty space, which spares you the house expansion, but seems to do nothing but increase the amount of time being wasted on you on the clock as you progress through it. Your birthday gift is a bag that's twice as large. It's gone regardless of affection level. You can't just automatically run ahead with the B button anymore. So naturally this means the game controls worse. It's so awkward. At that point it comes off as whoever's making the Harvest Moon games in the GBC was just fucking tired of Harvest Moon games and tried too hard to be different. While I appreciate having things to buy, why do I have to buy furniture like rugs and a TV when I had them from the start in the previous games? I'd think that the bookshelf would be what I need to buy. First game with books to buy after all. And I still start out with a small bookshelf and useless furniture anyways. If you don't have a TV because you just moved there, well, there's no reason the protagonist wouldn't have brought all of their old furniture to the house. You'd never expect when you first played this game that that girl would just be sitting in your house doing nothing until late in the first spring. In a game that must have been marketed around this, you'd think you'd have an animal in the first place. You're not allowed to switch tools with start anymore. Although this does do a favor because time doesn't pass when you're in the menu. It feels slow paced that you have to go to a menu containing tons of options for going to other menus and press A. But that's not enough. You have to select the specific tool you want from a menu. And at least tool is the default option. And seed is the second. Why on earth is seed not part of the tool menu? You have an awesome amount of slots for your tools, so it's not like you wouldn't be able to fit all the seeds there. I love that you start out with 8 slots in your bag. But with the Miracle Gloves, it doesn't really matter. It's only really useful if you're playing as the girl. My game glitched and refused to let me open the menu once. This wouldn't matter if I could just switch tools with start and B. Don't you just love it when you have glitches that you can't replicate? The big kicker is that once you've selected a tool, you can't just instantly return to gameplay with one button press. That's an extra bit that really makes it feel slow-paced and unnecessary kick in the pants when you're used to better games. I went back to the menu a lot since I can't see the farm there. Speaking of better games being better, time passes indoors! Why? I feel like the game betrayed me. This barely ever inconveniences you, but it really sucks when it does. I thought I could trust the older games not to do that, because this isn't late in the franchise where they forgot to keep things simple and fun. It feels like it's just another change that's the definition of unnecessary and just there to be annoying, not something you can actually do something to overcome. It's barely even challenging, so that hardly justifies it. It's a good thing you start with seeds, but only if you play as the guy. Something that took me until year 5 to discover was that mashing A twice over an item in your bag has the game ask, throw it away? Why would anyone want to do that? And yes is the default option. So good thing I never chose that. Why did they program that? The first thing I noticed was every tool is half as fast as in 2. I love that apparently weeds can't grow in tilled soil in this game. Thankfully, when you leave the farm, you go to a world map where you can select areas to instantly teleport to, which saves you a ton of potential time, and it's a lot less boring than walking all the way there. I hate that when you press down from the farm, it doesn't send you down, but to the right. Want a job? I would like to know what I'm expected to do. He tells you if you choose yes, but why would you agree to a job you don't know anything about? You're only gonna do it out of curiosity to see what he has to say. He should have immediately told you the first time you talk to him that you're told to ship certain things, and you get an extra amount of money from doing that. You get more money from the part-time job if you do it really quickly, apparently. It really only takes a few days of taking advantage of the system the whole day the ferry's there for you to not be offered jobs for the berries anymore. What's really stupid is that he offers you jobs for stuff you can't actually get in the season you're in sometimes. Every time he asks you for a job, it's random which one he gives you, and you have to just keep saying no until you find the job you want. And every time you say no, you have to press A over yes for want a job again. I'm happy to see that the part-time job idea is a primitive version of requests. It's a fun way to play the game. Because they're brought back to want a job when you say no, it comes off like only one part-time job request is offered at a time. Why does he say, this is all the jobs there is, or whatever he said, when that's a lie? Why would you think that saying no and then asking for a job again would give you another offer? I guess the requests are only meant for you. Because otherwise, why did someone else fulfill the request for you when you're not the only farmer in the province? The part-time jobs have a deadline, alright. But it's a 30-day deadline. I heard that Stardew Valley has real part-time jobs, where you work for the villagers. That's what I always assumed it would be like. They should have just called them requests. What is P&T work supposed to tell you in the shipping screen? The game doesn't explain what increase your reputation as a farmer means. Will I ever meet those people I'm impressing? How much should I care? The biggest problem with the part-time work option is that you can only do it when you can get to the mainland. It's so unintuitive that the seed shop is called the shopping mall, and they have the seeds there instead of right next to the grass seeds, which would have actually been convenient. There's no clinic, so even a little tool use is probably gonna have you robbed of the next day because you got sick with no way to fix it. So you're gonna be too scared to even sow a couple of seeds. The soundtrack for this game is fantastic. You know what I really love about the game's shopping mall? The music doesn't restart when you change floors. Sad that I even have to compliment this. I love this music, it's so happy and triumphant. The mall's open until 8 PM, who'd guess that? There's a theater in the mainland and I immediately gave up on it and reloaded the save state, because it's just slowly scrolling text, so it's not entertaining. The forest is just a maze of trees where you get lost. There's apparently nothing to forage. It reminded me of Zelda 1 right away. It makes you think you need a guide to know the way through. It turns out that no matter what direction you take, besides south on the first screen, just keep making screen transitions and it'll always take you to the lake to fish. Because that makes sense. You'd expect there to be another room you could get to in the forest by taking a special path. So that's a waste of time. This place is the first proper screen transitions in the series. The cliff has nothing to do. The mountain, same. Why isn't there stuff to forage there? At least only one screen of time wasting then. But why let it go there when there's nothing to do? All these pointless screens do is confuse the player, as they now have to memorize which area isn't worthless when all of them seem like they would be useful. So it makes starting out the game seem even more off-putting. Speaking of nothing to do, the village. It's looking like it's just a bunch of houses with permanently locked doors that do nothing for you, with villagers walking around. I'm guessing the real village is on the mainland. In a game like this, you expect to get the fishing rod the second you talk to the fisherman. But all the villagers come off like they're useless, which is misleading. Thankfully, before the second day of spring, I eventually found out the unintuitive way you're supposed to speed up text. You hold the control pad while the text bubbles up. Why can't I press A in front of the kitchen in this game and get told how much food I have? I don't know how much food I have. I bought a meal set, but then my character just immediately started eating. You have an infinite amount of automatically eaten daily food in this game. Which I guess is alright, but kinda ruins the immersion increasing point of your character eating food for every mealtime. Where'd you get it from? It's a good thing they ditched the character eats every time it's lunch or supper in the next game. I wouldn't say that if it restored way more stamina. Its tiny stamina restoration doesn't spare you hot spring trips unless it's early game. While it is immersive, you can't do anything while the character's eating, so it's a waste of your time. I had to look up the flowers to find out that even though the flower seed is more expensive, the actual flower is less profitable than asparagus. If you take too long to use a charged up tool, your character stops charging it, which is one of watering's most common challenges. Something that never stops impressing me about this game is that you can actually water the middle crop when you plant a 3x3 square of crops. You just can't water it when the crop is old enough. You just have to be standing close enough to it from the north for some reason. It's intuitive enough that I figured it out on my own by accident. I don't know why Friends of Mineral Town didn't do this. A reward for playing as the boy character, because sexism, is that you get to use some miracle gloves from the start. And the game does jack shit to tell you what they do in the menu, even though a lot of people aren't going to know what they do from the previous game. Throwing stuff with them immediately sends them to the storage house. Shipping them would have been faster, so sending them to storage just pads things out. They should have called them harvest gloves. It would have been even faster of just picking stuff up, put them in your storage house. The first spring and rainy days are entirely dominated by the most boring gameplay in the game, foraging. You're literally picking up the same berries over and over again, for a ridiculous amount of time. The berries respawned infinitely in the first game too, but at least the day ended really quickly, so you only had to put up with it twice. The grassland's so mountainous looking. You'd think grassland would be called hill with all these ledges. It took until the 5th day of the first spring for me to find out that berries respawn infinitely, because you really wouldn't expect it to be like that. I wish someone in the game had told me about this. This is easily the most slow, boring beginning ever. You're not going to know in the first playthrough that you're going to buy everything by the time the first year is done. Besides a few books. Why in the world can't I just get berries from the forest as well? or every single location in the game and they don't respawn. That would be more interesting, having a constant change in level design. I could also get stuff other than berries. While I was tilling the land, finding power berries in the meantime, my hoe leveled up twice and I'm only at the second day. This made me paranoidly wonder how many goddamn levels the tools have before max if I level up that fast. The tool upgrading system is awesome. While shipping bin is a concept that explains itself, this game's handling of shipping will inevitably have you look up online how you're supposed to do it. You'd think the phone was for shopping, if anything. You put stuff in a storage house by walking into it, and phone the buyer in your house after 8 AM. And it takes forever because you have to make a separate call for every one kind of item. You'll see a huge amount of blocks with every possible item in the game and each of them grayed out. I pressed A over them and a sound happens suggesting that they aren't there. It just spoils the various items of the game before you actually get to collect them, but at least it doesn't spoil their names. The only thing that can be in color is something that's highlighted that you actually have. So on the first day, the only things I had were the mountain berries, which I collected from a path which actually lets me jump down its ledges, but you can't start jumping from the top. I pressed A bunch of times, naturally assuming that this was me depositing the berries. Instead it was the exact opposite. There's a bookshelf and it does jack shit to tell you about the convoluted way shipping works. Why is it the only Harvest Moon games that explain shipping are the ones with a shipping bin? It doesn't make sense that merely walking to the storage house deposits everything in your bag, even if it is awesome. It's confusing that there isn't a text box right away the first time that says you deposited everything in your bag. Why would you have an entire building dedicated to a mere menu for a storage bin that you can't walk around in? Maybe it would be more intuitive if it looked like a shipping bin. A building I walk into could be anything. It looked like it'd be a tool shed. The fact that you can't call them until 8 makes the calling an intrusion because now you have to get into the habit of going back to your house in extra time than normal every day after. You have to do this twice a day when it comes to the things that you're constantly putting a huge amount of in your storage bin. You're arbitrarily only allowed to store 99 of one particular item and ship it at once. Big problem when you've got a big harvest and you end up unknowingly throwing items into oblivion. Why on earth do I have to call them? Shouldn't they just be assuming I always have something to ship and going here to check every day? Well, it turns out that's worth the unnecessary added tedium of always having to mash A through text that says a lot of different things. Hi, we're the Farmers Union, and as if you didn't already know from all the other times we said that. It's worth it because at least you can ship in bulk. I hate that when you're choosing how many things you want to ship, it's possible to hold up too much and go back to 0. This is a Harvest Moon game where you can actually ship things during a typhoon or blizzard for once. This time you get paid at 6 PM. Why on earth would they come pick it up right away and not leave the money behind? How are they instantly getting to your storage bin and shipping everything there at once? Are they wizards? You can't just ship one thing and then remain on the menu screen to ship something else. They didn't think that'd get annoying? At least shipping bins don't talk to you. Better remember every specific type of item that you thought to put in storage recently, or you would have to get used to looking through every possible item. It's a good thing you can go into your house from the north door as well, so you're right next to the phone after that. I assumed the hot spring would have been there from the start, not that you have to dig it up. And you have to dig enough times in the same spot. At least I didn't have to buy the shovel, but that would have been intuitive. To get the shovel, you have to think to go into the hot spring house when you don't need to. The shovel will be there, because for no reason it's not already with all your other tools in your inventory when you start the game. You can't have a tool equipped when you pick up the shovel. It feels better to dig things with a hoe, but the hoe's better because you can't upgrade the shovel, obviously. I checked on my crops after the second day, and a few of them were missing. You have to buy a scarecrow to prevent this from happening. It's thousands of G. At the point in the game you buy it, it feels pretty expensive. I shouldn't need to get past the paywall to get things to the point that they should have been at in the first place. I couldn't have prevented that at this point in the game, so that was just cruel. You can still use the ferry at 6 AM, but at that time you can't go into the stores in the mainland. Why isn't there anything to forage there? You aren't allowed to buy seeds and stuff every day, or even most days anymore, and instead can only do so on Mondays and Thursdays. Because fuck being a convenient game and a good sequel. The worst part is, if it's raining, you can't go on the ferry anyways. Fuck that so much. It's so intrusive having to plan ahead so that when the crops get harvested, you'll have seeds to plant right after harvesting them. And when you're just starting out, you're not gonna have the money for that. I wasn't paying attention to what day of the week it was on the first day I was playing, because Harvest Moon games don't train you to get used to this kind of mechanic. So I didn't know it was Monday on the first day. You can see what day of the week it is out of the corner of your eye, but it just says the first 3 letters of the day of the week, which doesn't tell you anything until you actually think to look directly at it because you want to know what day of the week it is, because you think you need to know it. Why start a new game the default option when you go back to the title screen? At least it raining doesn't make it hard to tell what soil has seeds on it, like in a Harvest Moon Super Nintendo, so you don't accidentally forget to water some things. This game also has some parts of the pastures that you can't plant grass in, like in a Harvest Moon 2. That's less I have to do. This harkens back to the first game, where you can't plant in shadows. There's always some parts of the ground on your farm that you can't till in for some reason. At one point my partner said that she won't realize her dad's dream if she doesn't get 3 of every type of animal in the farm by the end of the year. It's a good thing the game warns you to do that, but it still doesn't warn you what the punishment for it is. Wouldn't you think the only punishment would be that she gets sad? I was cheated out going on the ferry because my cat was missing. Realistically, why is a ferryman not offering to let you go to the mainland? You talk to all the villagers and they all say basically the same thing. They act concerned but never find the cat for you. I wonder why the girl wasn't looking for the cat if she cared that much. At one day she goes from feeding every animal consistently to feeding 0 of them. And I was surprised that the game actually lampshaded that. At least the game gives you an opportunity to snark at her. I assume her affection lowers because of it, but I didn't notice any problem after that. I hate that you're not allowed to name anything after a character already in the game. For a lot of people, that would be their only idea for how to name animals. I was stunned when I learned that animals have genders in this game. I didn't explain it because it was self-explanatory, but in most of these games, the animals are hermaphrodites. They always produce, so they're clearly females. But you can use Miracle Potion on one, and she becomes pregnant without a bull. This isn't the case in this game. I stared at the screen dumbfounded for a few seconds, as if this game wasn't overly convoluted enough. Why would you make this game even more scary and unfamiliar than it already is? Roosters can't lay eggs, so what is fun about not letting you hatch a chicken without a rooster? He's just gonna take up space in your coop until you sell him. Same goes for male cows. They just look like female cows, but they don't produce milk. They're just miracle potions that take up feed on you. And male is the default option for choosing to buy animals. I hate that when an animal's an adult and you talk to it, you're asked, want a baby? Right after being asked if you want to take it outside. Every single time, for every single animal. Even if your barn or coop is full. Even if every animal of a certain species in your farm is the same gender. You still have to deal with that message. And yes is somehow the default option. So ranching is the slowest it's ever been so far. Why make the barns and coops have 2 extra rooms so it takes twice as long to get to their pasture? You can't name your chickens, which is good for the pacing at least. It's nice that animals can't be hurt by tools. Heart levels can't even be decreased in this game. I love that she really does increase the affection of the animals she feeds. This game doesn't let you pick chickens up, so being finished with interacting with them takes forever. What the fuck kind of Harvest Moon game doesn't let you pick the chickens up? At least the coop is pretty big, and they have the good sense to separate the 8 chickens so there's 4 in each of the 2 rooms. If it's raining out, the animal will still get sent outside if you accidentally choose yes. This happened to me multiple times, because they're in such a hurry to get through all that text. This is why it sucks that you're expected to fill up their heart meter. How is the pasture full when just 4 animals are in it? Sometimes they get trapped between the stalls by the animals, because you can't push them. That's usually great because you can't do it by accident. They finally fixed the biggest problem with ranching. Putting the animals outside means you don't have to feed them, but it's up to the player whether it's worth having to constantly put them back inside, one at a time, unlike in 2. If you put your animals out to the pasture, not only can you put only 4 of a species outside, but somehow those are the only ones that eat that day. The rest get too jealous to eat. So now I have the best excuse possible to not do grazing, because it's literally pointless. Like in Harvest Moon 2. Chicks need food now. Infuriatingly, they have the chickens have an affection meter now. After you use the charged up level 3 sickle, you stand there dizzy briefly after spinning in a circle. Which is especially dumb, as you don't do that with any other tool you spin with. Let's talk about the partner system. It's a bit of a disappointment. After I got a chicken, I told her to take care of it, choosing animals as an option, thinking that I would have preferred it if it said feed animals or collect. For no reason, animals as an option is only there to feed the animals, and the confusing option called MEW isn't about cats or Mewtwo, despite that being what it looks like. I thought the whole appeal of having a ranching partner was that you wouldn't have to do any ranching, and that's why only she can use the animal tools. Just because her partner's a girl, she's only good with taking care of animals like a mother, and is too wimpy to handle using a watering can a bunch. I can't not say this is sexist, because it's having the gender matter, and it's making the game worse. She does nothing all day long after just a couple of seconds of doing what you told her to do. The instant you go into the coop, she tells you she did it. I hope she'll magically summon the animal tools to herself, because I searched all of the stores in the game and couldn't find them. That little cutscene in the coop, they should have had it only play once in the entire game. Why would she waste your time telling you something that's immediately obvious if you have eyes after the first time she ever did it? You don't see the harvest sprites doing that. Another thing for streamlining the system that was immediately obvious was, why do I have to remember to tell her to start working at the start of every single day? Shouldn't a realistic human get the point pretty quickly? Why can't I hire her to do one task daily for a week, while I'm able to tell her to quit at any day? I can understand that you don't have a spare watering can to give to her. I just wish you could have bought an extra one to give to her. Why does she refuse to give you the milkers and shears if she's too much of a lazy bum to do all the work? Why am I forced to never be able to make her feed the cows again because she gave up for the day? I discovered from looking in my storage house that you can't give people gifts with the miracle gloves equipped. I hate that the partner has a confusing anything option. Anything means both, but that's unintuitive. So I didn't use it until very recently, because I thought it was a random option. So something that could have been very useful was barely used by me. It's not even like it's the default option, and so it has an appeal as the faster option. I hate how she walks around the house, because it means I have to be careful giving her a gift, because I might destroy it by accident. I'm better off leaving the house and coming back. So I still have a few seconds where she's sitting still before I can give her a gift. At least I can do that. I get making it challenging to give a character a gift. It makes it more satisfying. They shouldn't have an option no or none when she asks start working, because you'll never want to choose it. And one day you will choose no by accident while holding the control pad to scroll the text faster. And then you won't be able to tell her to work that day at all. I really hate how the partner doesn't do work during a typhoon or blizzard. I know it wouldn't make sense for her to be able to leave, but it's a video game. Typhoons ignore grass now, though. I get attached to her more than the actual harvest sprites. You do actually forgive her for being so useless at the start of the game, when she goes long enough without sucking. I feel like she's an actual person with a relationship with my character. Especially when she told me she was watching TV and wants to order the garbage disposal because it's on sale. How did she see anything in the TV other than the weather report in my house? But yeah, I like the idea of her much more than the harvest sprites, where I feel like I have no moral right to enslave them from my farm. At least the typhoon gave me another chance to decide to buy the garbage disposal after all. It seems like its price was highway robbery when I was saving for the mayo maker. And it bafflingly only seems to make fertilizer out of rotten stuff, which I'd have to intentionally let them rot to get them that way. Why the hell isn't it weeds instead? Logically, you would be able to just buy fertilizer from the start. I was told I'd get it in 3 days, but I didn't notice when I did get it. That is better than making it sit through a long cutscene because you got it. By the time you get fertilizer, it's already too late for you to benefit from it. It turns out fish can be made into fertilizer. Oh, good. The game doesn't explain that you have to dig multiple times to get the hot spring to work. So on my first playthrough, I still didn't have a functioning hot spring at this point. Not that I would ever need it. I can't remember the last time my character ever made a fatigued gesture. I ate almost all the power berries at this point, but I'm not even at the penultimate one yet. I can water the entirety of my farm and not even see my character wipe their forehead. The sprinkler is 50,000 G, which is too much money considering that all it does is water 4 measly seeds around it, and you can only buy one of it. For a price like that, I assumed that it would water at least half your field. It automatically waters those crops around it at 6 AM every day. 50,000 G is actually not so expensive. You can make almost that amount of money by almost the end of the first season, if you know what you're doing, and you just spam the berry requests. But the sprinkler isn't worth buying before the animals, considering how quickly you end up with the best watering can. And how quickly you can water 4 seasons worth of crops. The sprinkler doesn't save you that much time. I had to look up a guide to know how to place the sprinkler. Since when do sprinklers need to be in a river to work? It's already confusing enough that apparently the scarecrow is a tool, so you have to equip it to place it. That's actually the case with the sprinkler too. You can actually use a cheat code to get as many sprinklers as you want. I wouldn't recommend it until you get the fishing rod, because there's nothing else to do but get berries. And watering is more fun than picking up berries. The graphics don't have the little river you dug up look like it's shallow enough to walk on. It's also convenient that you can walk over the sprinkler no problem. I hate that you can't run when you're moving through the shallow river you created with the shovel. Why? It doesn't look like tall marsh grass. It's not knee-deep. If you jump over a weed and land on a water tile though, you still land with a running start and can get past the water just as fast as before. At least you can jump over a weed, but that was the minor thing. I don't feel like it's a good thing most of the time. Doing it by accident sucks, and you usually do it by accident. Nearly every other Harvest Moon game let you plant grass around your crops so that you can get rid of weeds forever. Starting with this game, you can't. I suppose it's good that they're discouraging you from wasting valuable grass seeds on that. It is very expensive to plant grass all over your crops after all. But then I'd have stuff to buy before the game potentially ends. You can only get one measly bag of fertilizer per day, no matter how much stuff runs. Who thought that was a good idea? You cannot fertilize soil that already has crops growing in it. Like you know that. So that's a developer oversight. Something I always appreciate is that when you use fertilizer in the wrong place, you don't waste it. So it's confusing that it still plays the throwing animation. The fertilizer guide said there are apparently earthquakes. Those earthquakes, as well as storms, can remove your damn fertilizer. So much for fertilizer being a permanent accomplishment. The only fertilizer you lose from the soil is the tiles that had crops on them that got swept away. I had to look up how to get the fishing rod. You have to know to befriend a guy standing in front of the cabin where the village entrance is, rather than simply buying it or something. Befriending everyone is always the last thing I do in a Harvest Moon game. How was I supposed to know I'd be lucky enough that everybody likes berries and loves crops and animal products? Why is he so spiteful? Why won't he just give it to me right away? He knows there's no way of me getting it other than that. You know what really sucks though? Nobody's outside when it's raining. And every house is locked at all times. Sure, it's realistic, but it's not good for a game like this. It artificially extends how long it takes to befriend everyone. It was an early game, so for all I knew, it just didn't have a fishing rod. As if that wasn't bad enough, he's not outside on Tuesdays and Saturdays either. At least it's creative that a fisherman asks for your hammer. When I first started fishing, I immediately had the saddest expression of disappointment on my face. Why did they slow down the speed that you cast your rod into the water? Why did they slow down the speed that you get it out of the water? Every single time that I'll get my bag full of fish, I'm thankful that I have the miracle gloves to switch to. Good thing you can switch tools while still holding something. Oh god, every species of fish has its own individual square in the storage house. I'll have to search through every square of the fish section every time I want to ship fish to find them all. Why the fuck couldn't they have just kept it simple and have the large, small, and medium fish take up 3 slots between them? Why couldn't you get a power berry from catching every species of fish, but it doesn't take up a different slot for every species? This means I'll have to make so many phone calls in a row just to ship a bunch of fish. At some point, the game developers needed a playtester to tap them on the shoulder and tell them what they're doing wrong. Fishing is a lot more fun than foraging. Because you have a bag, you don't have to spend any time walking when you're fishing. The fishing spot with the most big fish seems to be the river in the forest. I think this is the first game in the series where it actually matters where you fish to that extent. I wish I could just go north one screen and get to the river after the first time I get to it. I always hate how long the cans take to disappear because I'm not allowed to fish again until they vanish. It's like how after you're done charging up, you can't move until all the soil is watered. When the stupid message pops up telling you that it's midnight, if you happen to get a bite at the same time, you lose that fish even if you caught it right at the instant the text box showed up. Like in a Harvest Moon 2, where I forgot to mention it because of how minor it was, since in both games you can just catch another fish really quickly. I like that you don't lose bites by accident. You don't get your fishing rod out of the water by pressing A until after you get a bite or move. I like that there are fireworks. I assumed the camera would pan up and I'd see nothing but the sky and fireworks. Why'd Kate approach me when I barely even talked to her? Why can't I choose Mary? Well, at least that means that you don't have to befriend her to see an event with her. When Kate's at the cliff and you try to give her a gift, the gift just vanishes as you throw it through her, even though you didn't have the miracle gloves equipped. Why did they not anticipate that you'd want to give someone a gift as a reward for wanting to spend time with you? The books are a convoluted way of getting your befriended partner to make mayonnaise and stuff for you without makers. Why would you need a bookshelf to fit them all on to read them? Realistically, you would be able to read a book anyways because you put the book on the floor. But you don't see them on the floor. They should have just told me these books are for your partner as gifts to make them more capable. It does make some sense that books are how you make them more capable. But it's impossible for me to believe that you need to give your male partner 2 different books on tilling soil in rows and in U-shapes before he'd be smart enough to do the tilling that way. This is the protagonist of the previous game.